LoveLore Library. Chapter 785. But when she saw Grandma Bai's expectant eyes, she found it funny. She smiled and nodded. Okay, I'll listen to you. After 3 days of traveling, Shin Yueji asked Double Happiness to get some water for a bath. Lying in the bathtub, she closed her eyes. Thinking back to the past, maybe it was these 3 days that she really got over some things. Coming to the Dark North Kingdom was a new beginning for her. Until a warm hand landed on her back. It was smooth and delicate, unlike the hands of Double Happiness who had practiced martial arts. She turned her head abruptly, and when she saw Mo Wushang, she was shocked. She didn't expect him to get the news so quickly. And, according to Grandma Bai, she seemed to want her to keep him hanging, but she didn't expect you. Maybe because she had been soaking in the water for too long. Shin Yueji's voice was soft. Looking at him, she forgot that she was bathing and was still in the water. Aren't you in the Imperial study? Why are you here so soon? The man carried her out of the water and walked to the bed. His voice was hoarse, but it couldn't hide the tremble. I heard Ji Chu say you're here, so I came. He gently put her on the bed, and then his tall body pressed down. Knowing what he was going to do, Shin Yueji put her hands on his chest, but she quickly put them down. Mo Wushang her lips were blocked, and the man kissed her passionately. Then he slowly left her lips. Don't ever think about leaving my side in this lifetime. It was night, the dim stars gradually brightened, and the atmosphere in the hall was getting more ambiguous. Double Happiness originally wanted to go in and add some hot water for Miss, but she heard the sound inside. She blushed. Even a fool would know what the person inside was doing. She knew that Miss and Master would do something intimate, but she didn't expect that. However, she quickly thought that if that was really the case, then she would soon be able to be hugged by the young master. Thinking of this, she left cheerfully. At that time, the most angry person was Pang Yuan of the Pure Yang Palace. When she found out that Shin Yueji was not dead and came to the Dark North Palace, she was drinking tea. Hearing the voice, she smashed the teacup on the ground. What did you say? She glared fiercely at Xiao. Queen, please calm down. Xiao was so scared that she knelt on the ground and shrunk her neck. It's news from Xingyang Palace. They said that the emperor was dealing with official business in the imperial study. Later, eunuch Lu whispered something in the emperor's ear. Then, the emperor returned to Xingyang Palace happily. According to the servants in Xingyang Palace, it's the Feng country's imperial concubine Xin who arrived. So the emperor put down all the government affairs and went to see imperial concubine Xin. Bang! As if she had lost all her strength, Pang Yuan fell weakly onto the chair. Now, all the signs were proving to her that Shin Yueji had arrived in the northern underworld safe and sound and had even moved into her brother's bedchamber. The people of the dark poisonous cult had failed. They had failed. Not only had they not killed Shin Yueji, but they had also allowed her to enter the harem of the northern underworld safely. She clenched her fists. In the past few days, she didn't know how many times she had begged to see her older brother, the emperor. Each time, the guards would stop her outside, saying that the emperor was busy with official business and didn't want to see her. Chapter 786. She knew that it was a pretense that her brother said on purpose. It couldn't even be her brother who said it. He didn't even need to say it and the guards would understand what he meant. She just thought that he was busy and knew that he was tired. She knew that she shouldn't disturb him and let him be busy alone, but, however, when he found out that the woman had entered the palace, he was so agitated. He didn't even care about the government affairs that he had been busy with for the past few days. He directly put it down to find her and see her. He even directly put the woman in his Xingyang palace, the palace that he lived in, that was his residence. She had never been there normally. Even the Empress Dowager rarely went there. He actually, Your Highness. Maybe the Emperor is just interested in that woman. After all, the women of the Foam Nation are different from the women of the North Sea. Plus, that woman could shamelessly seduce the Foam Nation's Emperor, let alone the Emperor. The Emperor, he. Slap. Xiao was slapped in the face and fell to the ground. She covered her face and looked at the ferocious Pang Yuan in fear. Her legs kept moving backward. Your Highness. Your Highness, Xiao, are you trying to fool me like I'm a fool? If Brother Emperor was just playing with her, why would he bring her to the North Sea? He knew that she was the imperial concubine of the Foam Nation's Emperor, but he still openly snatched a woman from him. He was willing to pay any price for this woman, even if he had to go to war with the Foam Nation. Moreover, he even planned to make this bitch his empress. Xiao, you're lying to me. You've been lying to me all along. If he didn't really like her, why would he spend so much effort to keep her by his side? Pang Yuan turned around angrily. Xiao was worried when she saw her leaving. She quickly got up from the ground and chased after her. Your Highness, where are you going? Your Highness. Pang Yuan rushed all the way to Xingyang Palace. On this road, she didn't even sit in the carriage. From her Puryang Palace to Xingyang Palace, it took some distance. But she ran like this, stumbling and stumbling. Her hair and jewelry were all messed up, and a lot of her bearing was gone. However, she didn't care at all, especially when she saw the servants of Xingyang Palace being chased out. They whispered that the Emperor was doting on that woman from Foam Country tonight and wanted to curry favor with that woman. They said that they had served the Emperor for so long, but they had never seen the Emperor care so much about a woman. The degree to which he cared was even more important than his own life. Every word that Pang Yuan heard became more and more piercing to her ears. In the end, she couldn't bear to listen any longer. She glared at the servants who were discussing, men. Men. Drag all these servants who are gossiping away and behead them. Behead him. She shouted angrily. She didn't care that the people who heard her voice were all so frightened that they knelt on the ground, trembling and begging for mercy. She directly brushed past the group of people and rushed in. As long as she thought that her brother, the Emperor, was really doting on that bitch like they said, her heart felt like it was being pierced by needles. That was hers. That was hers. All these years, her brother, the Emperor, had always been clean and had never had other women by his side. He had never touched other women. But as long as she thought that her clean brother, the Emperor, was going to be tainted by that bitch. If she wanted to chat with more like-minded people about exploding cute concubine, Prince Regent, getting into trouble, follow Yudu literature. Chapter 787. Ah! She grabbed her hair fiercely. Bitch! Bitch, don't touch my brother Emperor. Stay away from my brother Emperor. However, before she could rush in, her path was blocked by someone. That head of white hair was so dazzling in her eyes that it almost blinded her. She felt that it was extremely ironic. She also stood there and stared at her. Granny. The granny looked at her coldly and suddenly raised her hand to give her a slap. Pang Yuan was stunned by the sudden slap. She covered her face and stared at her incredulously. Granny, why did you hit me? Why did I hit you? The granny smiled coldly. You have to ask yourself. Pang Yuan, you are from an aristocratic family, how could you do such a vicious thing? It's hard for you to remember that I am your granny. If I didn't know martial arts, would you have killed me at that time? Her worries and misgivings in Puryang Palace were not without reason. Now that she heard the granny's words, she finally understood. No wonder the people from the dark poison cult failed. It turned out that she was helping that bitch. It turned out that it was her. Not to mention the six-headed serpent lady from the dark poison cult. Even the cult master of the dark poison cult might not be a match for the white-haired granny. But the granny had long stopped meddling in the affairs of Jianghu. After so many years of seclusion, why, your Peng family has an extraordinary position in the court, but don't forget that Ji is my future daughter-in-law. If you dare to hurt her, don't blame me for not considering the past. Granny, what do you mean? What do I mean? Don't you understand? Peng Yuan trembled with anger. Granny, you are embarrassing me like this for an outsider. Outsider? The granny smiled coldly. Do you think Ji is an outsider? She is my future daughter-in-law and the future Empress of Dark North. What right do you have to call her an outsider? Hearing that even the white-haired granny was protecting that bitch, Peng Yuan covered her face and crawled up from the ground. Granny, in your heart, do you really value that bitch that much? You're the one who watched me grow up. The woman by Brother Emperor's side can only be me. Other than me, no other woman is good enough for him. Let's not talk about that bitch's identity first. Just the fact that she was once the imperial concubine of the Feng country's emperor means that her body has long been impure. How could the empress of the northern underworld allow an impure woman to be the empress? If word of this gets out, how can the people of the world believe it? As if she had heard something funny, the white-haired granny gradually laughed out loud. I don't care if it's clean or not. It's Shang Er's decision. If he's willing, who would dare to say no? Wan I'm already being lenient with you because I've watched you grow up, and I've watched you grow up. If it were someone else, do you think that she would be qualified to say those words and slander me? Grandma, why are you so muddle-headed? She's a woman from Feng country. She obviously has a motive for coming to Dark North. How could you let a spy from another country work for you? How could you be as muddle-headed as Brother Emperor and let such a dangerous person stay in Dark North's harem? If you want to chat about explosively cute concubine, Prince Regent, gets into trouble with more like-minded people, follow Yudu Literature on WeChat. Chat about life and find confidence. Chapter 788. Granny, I know you've always treated Brother Emperor as your own son, just like the Empress Dowager. You should be more considerate of Brother Emperor. Can you let me in? Let me uncover that bitch's scheme. Peng Yuan was about to continue rushing inside. The white-haired granny's eyes turned cold and she flung her forcefully. Peng Yuan seemed to have lost all her strength and fell hard to the ground again. The sharp stone scratched her palm, and when she raised her head, she saw the white-haired granny's cold and emotionless face. Granny! Are you really going to do this to me? Compared to an outsider, you've watched me grow up. You've even said it yourself. Why? Why do you still treat me like this? Why don't you side with me, but with an outsider? Granny, you know, in this world, no woman can love Brother Emperor more than I do. I love him so much that I can give up everything for him. I'm even willing to die for him. But Granny, that woman can't do it. You love Brother Emperor so much, so you should know how important it is to his country to keep a woman who loves him by his side. My father. The white-haired granny squatted down in front of her, her eyes still cold and emotionless. Your love for him is important to his country, but Wan won't understand. The Empress Dowager and I only want him to be happy. When the late Emperor was alive, he and the Empress Dowager were as close as honey. Only when they had each other in their hearts would the most precious thing in this world not be in vain. As for the throne, the country, they are the most fake things in this world. The Emperor, the Empress Dowager, and I have seen through it. No, Peng Yuan shook her head. She didn't understand. She didn't understand. Looking at the gorgeous and dignified Jingyang Palace, she knew that with the white-haired granny standing in the way, she couldn't get in. But if she didn't go in, she almost didn't dare to think about what was going on inside. As long as she thought of the man she loved, suddenly, she took out a golden hairpin from her bun and pointed it at her snow-white neck. She threatened, "Granny, if you don't let me in tonight, I'll die in front of you. Your Highness. Your Highness, please don't." Seeing Pang Yuan use her life as a threat, Xiao panicked, especially when she saw Pang Yuan's snow-white neck. Dark red blood flowed down her neck. Xiao was completely flustered. If anything happened to the lady, the Grand Preceptor would definitely not let her off. Mother-in-law, please let Imperial Consort Nyang go in. You've seen how much Imperial Consort Nyang loves His Majesty all these years. Let me ask you, which woman would be able to see the man she loves doting on another woman? Granny, I beg you, Her Highness. Her Highness' neck is bleeding, if you don't let her in, threatening me with death. The white-haired granny smiled coldly, and her expression became even more indifferent. Pang Yuan, do you really think I'm scared? Let me tell you, I'm really not afraid of your threat. If you want to die, you can, but don't die in front of Jingyang Palace. Ji Chu. Hong Fui. Two figures descended from the sky. The white-haired granny looked back coldly. Take good care of her for me. Don't disturb Shang and my good daughter-in-law's nuptial chamber. If she wants to die, take her away and let her die far away. Don't let this dirty blood dirty Jingyang Palace. If you want to chat with more like-minded people about super cute pet concubine, Prince Regent, getting into trouble, follow Yudu Literature on WeChat. Chat about life and find bosom friends. Chapter 789. Hong Fui's lips curled into a wanton smile. Although Ji Chu did not smile, he agreed with the words of the white-haired old lady. After all, if it were them instead of the white-haired old lady, they might not be able to stop Pang Yuan from going in. After all, if anything happened to her, the two of them would definitely be in serious trouble. They would not be able to get past Grand Tutor Pang alone. However, it was different with the white-haired old lady. After all, not to mention the status of the white-haired old lady in Jianghu, just in this palace, who did not know her name and the relationship between her and the Empress Dowager. As long as it was her intention, it was most likely the intention of the Empress Dowager. Who would dare to disobey? No matter how powerful Pang Yuan was, even if she used her father as a backer, there was nothing to be afraid of as long as the white-haired old lady was there. When Pang Yuan heard this time, her face was completely pale. She knew that she could not go in, even if she threatened her with death. While she was distracted, Xiao quickly stepped forward and took the knife from her hand. Your Highness. Your Highness, are you okay? She quickly stepped forward and helped Pang Yuan up from the ground. She took out a handkerchief to wipe the blood on her neck. The wound was not very deep, but after all, she was pampered since childhood. Xiao had never seen her injured before. Now, the wound on her neck was even more frightening. Your Highness, what are you doing? You almost scared me to death. I can't do this again in the future. If anything happens to you, how can I explain it to the Grand Tutor? Your Highness, Hong Fui, in any case, we have known each other for a few years. Now, you are helping that bitch and not me. Hearing this, the man smiled coldly. Now you know that I am your friend. What were you doing earlier? Imperial Concubine Pang, I can't accept such a big gift from your friend. Speaking of this, his smile was full of endless sarcasm. Speaking of which, Imperial Concubine Pang, think about it yourself. Whose friend would want to kill the other party? I. I don't understand what you are saying. What are you talking about? You, Granny. Pang Yuan suddenly looked up. Granny, why do you all treat me like this? Why do you all talk to me in this tone? What have I done wrong? Or have you misunderstood me? What the hell happened? Oh, I know, there must be some misunderstanding between us. Granny, I've already told you that the bitch from Foam Nation has an unknown motive. She must be the one causing trouble and purposely provoking our relationship. Granny, you must not be bewitched by her. That slut was so evil. She's so evil. Xiao, quickly tell Grandma, quickly ask Grandma what happened. There must be a misunderstanding, there must be. Mr. Fui is my brother's best friend, and I treat you like my own brother. Why would I want to kill you? Yeah. Xiao also quickly knelt on the ground. Mr. Fui, you must have misunderstood my mother. She treats you as her own brother. Why would she want your life? Moreover, Her Highness only found out about the Imperial Consort of Foam Nation coming to Dark North Kingdom tonight. After she found out, she couldn't wait to come over. As for what happened before and if there was any misunderstanding, Her Highness really doesn't know anything. If you want to chat with more like-minded people about super cute favorite concubine, the Regent, getting into trouble, follow Yue Literature on WeChat. Talk about life and find a bosom friend. Chapter 790. Mr. Fui and Granny are both sensible people. Please do not be bewitched by that villain and misunderstand my lady. Whether it is bewitching or true, you and I both know it in our hearts, and there is nothing more to say. In short, tonight is the wedding night of Shang and my daughter-in-law, and I will not allow anyone to break in and ruin their good time. Pang Yuan, don't blame me for not persuading you. My patience is limited, and if you continue to be entangled here, don't blame me for turning against you. Pang Yuan knew that it was useless to beg her, so she could only suppress the hatred in her eyes and reluctantly took a few steps back. Her eyes were red and swollen, and half of her beautiful face was also swollen. Okay, I will go. I will go. These words seemed to be squeezed out from the gaps between his teeth. They were filled with endless grievance and hatred. But I will never allow that woman to continue to stay in the palace and do evil. After that, she did not look at the reaction of the crowd and directly turned to leave. Xiao was helpless and could only trot to catch up. Looking at her back, the white-haired granny frowned. This woman is narrow-minded, and her means are cruel. Although she has hidden a lot over the years, I have long known about the things she has done to the women in the harem. Now that has been targeted by her, and there is no background here, she will definitely be at a disadvantage. You must protect in the dark, and do not let her be in danger or threatened. Do you understand? Hong Fui whistled angrily. Now that the beauty has been returned to the rightful owner, that fellow treasures her so much that he almost doesn't need you to remind him. He will naturally love and cherish her as if she is his own lifeblood. How can we have the right to point fingers here? Maybe if we meddle too much, he will think that we have ulterior motives for his woman. The white-haired granny looked at him. Ji Chu awkwardly covered his mouth. Granny, Mr. Fui is right. I have already seen this when I was in the Foam Kingdom. Really? The white-haired granny suddenly smiled and squinted her eyes. That is good. She was afraid that her good daughter-in-law would marry here, and she did not know anyone here, and would be bullied. If Shang did not protect her, she would definitely be distressed. All the way back to the Puryang Palace on the way back, Pang Yuan's hair was in a mess, and her makeup was ruined from crying. She didn't even know where she had dropped her shoes. She came back barefoot, and there were many scratches on her feet from the sharp stones. Blood spread along with her as she ran back. Xiao couldn't keep up with her. At first, it was fine, as she had some strength. Pang Yuan didn't seem to feel tired at all. Xiao was panting behind her, but she did not dare to stop. She was afraid that her mother would not run back to the Puryong Palace. When the time came, she would go to a dangerous place. After all, she had seen the affection that her ladyship had for the emperor all these years. Seeing that the Puryong Palace was getting closer and closer to her, she followed the empress all the way back. It seemed that the empress did not run around, but came back. She carried Pang Yuan's shoes that fell on the way and followed Pang Yuan into the bedroom of the Puryong Palace. Your Highness. Your Highness, you ran too fast. I couldn't catch up with you even after chasing you all the way. Your Highness, you. The rest of her words stopped abruptly. Chapter 791. Because she saw a middle-aged man sitting upright in the main hall. He had been an official for many years, so he gave people a feeling of sharpness and coldness. It was the déjà vu of a person in a high position looking down on a person in a low position. This made Xiao swallow the words that were about to come out of her mouth. She knelt down tremblingly. Grand Preceptor, even Pang Yuan was completely stiff. The skin on her feet was abraded. The only thing that was intact was the shoe on her foot. But because she had stumbled along the way, she didn't know how many times she had fallen. There were a few bruises on the instep of her feet and a few bloody marks. It looked very scary. Pang Shen just looked at her with a pair of cold and gloomy eyes, which made people feel cold. Father, you are an imperial concubine of a country. Do you know what you look like now? Do you look like an imperial concubine at all? She didn't expect that after a few days, her father, who used to love her and was kind to her, would come to the palace tonight just to scold her. The more she thought about it, the more Pang Yuan felt wronged. She actually cried in front of him. After all, she was his daughter, and his only daughter. He had doted on her for more than 10 years. When she was young, he couldn't stand her tears. Now, seeing her crying like this in front of him, coupled with her disheveled appearance, blood stains, and swollen face, Pang Shen knew that she definitely didn't get any benefits from the white-haired old lady. He knew the old lady's character very well. His wand would definitely suffer because of her. If she didn't like someone, she wouldn't care that he was behind Pang Yuan. She wouldn't look at anyone's face, and she wouldn't give face to anyone. Moreover, she had disliked Pang Yuan for more than a year or two. Speaking of which, what Pang Shen couldn't figure out was why this old lady hated so much. In his eyes, his daughter was well-educated and reasonable. Although she was a little unruly and willful at times, she was not a bad person. Especially, she was proficient in the 4 arts. If it wasn't for the fact that the emperor was in the Feng nation, his daughter would definitely be the best candidate for the Dark North Empress. Father, I've already been bullied by so many people tonight. Now, even you came to the palace to teach me a lesson. Pang Shen's heart softened when he heard his daughter's grievance. He glared at Xiao. What are you waiting for? Can't you see that your miss is injured? Aren't you going to help your young miss apply the medicine? Yes. Xiao came to her senses and quickly got up from the ground. She went inside to look for the medicine box. No. I'm not applying any ointment. Tonight, Granny made me embarrass myself in front of so many people. Father. What else do you want? It's not like you don't know what kind of person that old woman is. Usually, even I have to give way when I see her, but you, on the other hand, directly bumped into her. Why did you have to provoke her for no reason? Why would I want to provoke her? I've always treated her like I treat the Empress Dowager. I've always respected her and treated her like my own mother. But Granny, she... I found out that the imperial concubine of the Foam Kingdom's emperor was brought to the North Sea by Brother Emperor. Brother Emperor even plans to make her the Empress. Father, you know that I've liked Brother Emperor for so many years. I've been working hard without any complaints. I hope that one day, Brother Emperor will look at me. Chapter 792. But that woman's appearance. Pang Shen held his forehead, feeling a headache coming on. Which woman? Have you ever seen an emperor who doesn't have a few concubines and women he dotes on? Just because of this, you dared to go to the emperor's palace and make a fuss. Are you making a fuss about him having another woman, or are you trying to prove that your father has a high position in the court and doesn't respect the emperor? Father, I didn't mean that. Peng Yuan knelt on the ground in fear. She really didn't think that way at that time. She only knew that her beloved brother, the emperor, was going to dote on another woman. Her heart was burning like a ball of fire. She was so jealous that she was about to die. Her only thought was to go to Xingyang Palace and stop them. Her brother could only belong to her. Her brother must not be violated by another woman. But she didn't expect the old woman to enter the palace. It was as if she had already expected her to come. She had been waiting for her at the entrance of Xingyang Palace, waiting for her to rush in without a care. I don't care. When the late emperor was still alive, he was alone for the sake of the Empress Dowager. He never took a concubine. He didn't even touch the women who entered the palace for the concubines. He even chased them out of the palace. Do you think you are the second Empress Dowager? There have been such examples in history. But do you think you are one of them? You are born in the emperor's family. It is normal for the emperor to have 3 palaces and 6 courtyards. As for the woman from the Foam country, the Empress Dowager summoned me to the palace today and told me about it. Father suddenly entered the palace today because the Empress Dowager summoned you. What else? Pang Shen looked at her coldly. If the Empress Dowager didn't summon me to the palace, how would I know what my daughter has done in private? Father, you know about it. The shock on Pang Yuan's face was far greater than the fact that the old woman knew about what she had done in private. If her father knew that she had secretly collaborated with those evil sects and wanted Shen Yueji's life, fortunately, Pang Shen only reprimanded her in a low voice. The Empress Dowager said that you sent people to assassinate Shen Yueji, which almost made Shen Yueji lose her life. Fortunately, the white-haired granny arrived in time. When he said this, he glared at her fiercely. Regardless of Shen Yueji's identity, she is still the woman the emperor likes. I heard from the Empress Dowager that the emperor stayed in Foam country and didn't come back because of that woman. Since you know that woman's position in the emperor's heart, you still crossed his bottom line and harmed her life. You can't rely on my status in the imperial court to be so unscrupulous and do whatever you want. Your mother passed away early, and I only have you as my daughter. When your mother passed away, she repeatedly exhorted me to teach you well and discipline you. She didn't allow any accidents to happen to you. I didn't even want you to marry the emperor. Emperors are fickle, and if you marry him, he will have so many beauties in his harem. Given your personality, you will never admit defeat. If you follow him, you will only suffer. Father, the Empress Dowager only told you that I sent people to assassinate Shen Yueji, but she didn't tell you who the people I sent were, right? Chapter 793. Pang Shen glared at her and rolled his eyes. You little girl. If you don't send our Pang family's elite hidden guards, who else can you mobilize? Hearing this, Pang Yuan let out a sigh of relief. At least the Empress Dowager had some conscience and didn't tell her father about her alliance with the people of the Jianghu. Father thinks too much. I can only mobilize the hidden guards of our Pang family. I can't mobilize the others. I came here for no other reason than to remember my own identity. Although you are not the Empress Phoenix seal is in your hands. The only thing I can help you with is to unite the ministers in the court and stop the Emperor from making that woman from Foam Country the Empress. Yes, Father. Hearing this, Peng Yuan's eyes lit up. Father, you might not know, but that Xin Yueji is the imperial concubine of the Foam Country's Emperor. I will listen to Father and not argue with that woman. The Emperor can just give her the title of imperial concubine. She doesn't even have the qualifications to be a second-rank imperial concubine. It's not that I don't want her to be the Empress. If Brother Emperor really conferred the title of Empress to such an unclean woman, no one in the northern underworld would be able to stop the mouths of everyone. You're right. The Empress has always been upright and virtuous. She also has a strong background. Only then can she be qualified to be the Empress of the Dark North Kingdom. This imperial concubine Shin of Foam Country really doesn't have the qualifications. Father, look, I'm just thinking for the Emperor, not for my own selfishness. Look at them, they don't know that I'm doing this for their own good. They even beat me up like this. Peng Shin came down from the high seat and walked in front of Peng Yuan. He caressed her swollen face. Warned her, you've been wronged. I know that this is not your fault. Father, all right, don't cry. I will find that old woman and ask for an explanation. Don't worry. My daughter will not be bullied like this. Even if it's the white-haired granny. Hearing this, Peng Yuan's face lit up and she threw herself into the man's arms. Father, you treat me so well. Silly girl, I only have you as my only daughter. If I don't treat you well, who should I treat well to? Just because of an emperor, you ended up in such a state. Those who didn't know better would think that he did something to you. No matter what, you are an imperial concubine of a country. You have to remember that no matter when or what situation you are in, you have to remember that you are an imperial concubine of a country. With your noble status, you absolutely cannot let others laugh at you. Fortunately, it's late at night, so no one has seen your pathetic appearance. If it wasn't for the white-haired granny, Father, how could I be in such a sorry state? Everyone in the harem knows my identity, and who would dare to disrespect me? Even Ji Chu and Hong Fui didn't dare to do anything to me. But who would have thought that the white-haired granny would interfere? It's all because of her. It's all because of her that I lost face in the palace. I'm afraid those servants of Xingyang Palace, when tomorrow comes, I don't know how they will talk about me in the inner palace. How dare they? This old man can't even bear to hit or scold my daughter. How could I allow them to wantonly whip her behind her back? If they dare to talk about me, this old man will take their lives. Chapter 794. Your Majesty, it's time for morning court. Xingyang Palace eunuch Lu had been waiting outside the hall and shouting countless times. It was fine at the beginning, but he would shout once every 30 minutes. There was still no reaction from the people inside. Seeing that the morning court time was about to end, he couldn't help shouting a few more times. There was still no reaction from inside. He couldn't help scratching his ears and cheeks. The emperor hadn't slept with his concubine for many years, so he couldn't control himself anymore. This was too, in the bedroom. Xin Yueji leaned against the man's arms. She naturally heard the sound outside. She wanted to wake up the man beside her, but when she raised her head, she found that the man was awake, and from his posture, it seemed that he had been awake for some time. There seemed to be something rolling in his dark eyes, causing her to subconsciously think of them last night. She blushed and hid in the man's arms. You. Since you're awake, didn't you hear outside? Before she could finish, her chin was gently pinched by the man. I heard, but I don't remember. Why? Because I have you. Xin Yueji was speechless. She calmed down in his arms for a long time until her face wasn't so hot anymore. Shin Yueji pushed him. Hurry up and go. I don't want to be crowned as a seductive monarch by those officials. The man found it funny and looked at her. It's my fault. It has nothing to do with you. They don't dare to talk nonsense. Don't you have a lot of things to deal with in the court? Plus, so many treacherous officials have been dealt with by you. There must be a vacancy in the court now. Oh, right. Shin Yueji suddenly thought of something and climbed onto the man's smooth neck. Mo Wusheng, there's something I want to tell you. The man looked like he was all ears. But not now. You have to go to the morning court first. I'll tell you after you come back. Her's matter is more important than the morning court. I'll go to the morning court after you're done. Shin Yueji was speechless. Shin Yueji hesitated for a while and said, Father and mother knew I was Gu Yueqin. They were worried about me being alone in the North Underworld and worried that I would be bullied, so they said that when the time was right, they would come to the North Underworld to keep me company. She didn't know what the man was thinking and stared at him. Mo Wusheng, when my parents were in Feng country, they were first-rank generals. Plus, they treated me so well and didn't do anything to me just because they knew I was Gu Yueqin. You can't treat them badly. Seeing her serious look, the man couldn't help but laugh. Seeing him laugh, Shin Yueji was even more confused. She hit him. What are you laughing at? It's my honor that General Shin is willing to come to the Northern Underworld. Whatever position he holds in the Feng Nation will be the same position he holds in the Northern Underworld. Apart from that, I will give him 1,000,000 military seals as a guarantee for you. It would be a lie to say that he wasn't moved. Rather than saying that he valued Shin He, it would be more accurate to say that he valued and cared about her. It turned out that in his heart, he already knew that she was worried about him. If he had 1,000,000 military seals in his hands, even if he got tired of her one day, he wouldn't dare to do anything to her. After all, 1,000,000 military seals was not a small number. The man lifted her hand, brought it to his lips, and kissed it gently. Chapter 795. Actually, rather than making you feel uneasy, I want you to believe in me. Believe that I treat you with sincerity. Believe me, in this world, I can betray anyone but you. I will use the rest of my life to prove to you that you are the only one in my heart. No matter what happens to you in the future, my feelings for you will never change. Although beauties were good, they were not his cup of tea. Moreover, he was not the kind of person who liked beauties. If not for the fact that there were so many beauties in the harem, he would not have fallen for any of them. At that time, Gu Yueqin was not very beautiful. At most, she was the daughter of a humble family. In addition, she was not well-dressed and ate well. She was thin and malnourished. Even the ugliest beauty in his harem was much better than her. But he still fell in love with her. He loved her without hesitation. He loved her so much that he could not control himself. Not long after Mo Wusheng left, Shuangxi came in to help her freshen up. When she was helping her put on her clothes, she moved closer to Shin Yueji with a mysterious expression. Miss, this servant did not sleep last night. Oh. She seemed to be surprised by her sudden answer. But on second thought, it made sense. In a new environment, a new place, whether it was the people or the scenery, it was inevitable that there would be some discomfort. You didn't sleep. Then what did you do? Shuangxi continued to be mysterious. Actually, nothing much. I just walked around the North Sea's harem and met a few beauties. Miss, this servant realized that any one of the beauties in the young master's harem would be a beauty that could cause the downfall of a country. At first, this servant thought that the emperor's harem had enough beauties. I didn't expect that the young master's harem would have even more beauties. Hearing this, Shin Yueji smiled. Isn't this normal? Since ancient times, as long as a man was born into a good family, which man did not have 3 wives and 4 concubines? In addition, your young master is the emperor. He has 3 palaces and 6 courtyards and thousands of concubines. To be honest, it is not strange at all. But the young master only has you in his heart. When he was helping her put on her clothes, Shuangshi would not ignore the ambiguous marks on her body. They were all left by the son-in-law. They were so deep and heavy that they seemed to melt into her body. It could be imagined how infatuated the son-in-law was with his young miss last night. Moreover, this servant also heard from Ji Chu that last night, young miss and young master were in the same room. Imperial consort Pang rushed over and wanted to ruin young Miss's affair. In the end, she was scolded by the white-haired granny. She didn't dare to resist even half a word. Although she used her death to threaten the white-haired granny to let her in, the white-haired granny didn't buy it at all. She didn't care about her death at all and insisted on guarding you and the young master. She didn't allow anyone to ruin the 2 of you. Did Pang Yuan come to make a scene last night? Yeah. I heard from Ji Chu that it was very violent. If it weren't for the white-haired granny, the servants of Xingyang Palace would have been executed by Pang Yuan. Young miss, tell me, why is this woman so vicious? She kept calling the white-haired granny to granny and behaved so intimately as if she was her own mother. As for young Master Fui, I heard from the people in the palace that they used to have a good relationship. However, she even dared to kill young Master Fui because of her own selfishness. Even the white-haired granny, the people in the palace said that if it weren't for the fact that the white-haired granny's martial arts was so strong that the people from the evil cult couldn't defeat her, the white-haired granny would have died in her hands. Chapter 796. Shin Yueji took a step forward. You're the servant girl I brought from Feng country. Be careful of her in the future, lest you fall into her trap. Don't worry, Mississippi. I'll be careful. Moreover, after last night's observation, I realized that no matter whether it's the servants in Xingyang Palace or the women in Brimming Kingdom's harem, none of them seem to like Pang Yuan. She does whatever she wants in the harem just because her father is the grand tutor. Because of her own selfishness, she has killed countless innocent servants and concubines for no reason. The emperor ignores this matter, but she becomes even worse. This makes the people in the harem even more furious, but they don't dare to speak out against her. They can only keep all their hatred in their hearts. Now that you're here, and the emperor dotes on you so much, the people in the harem are all signaling you with their eyes. I'm sure they'll come over to curry favor with you. Although the support of the maiden family is important, in young master's heart, the most important thing is not the country, but you, Mississippi. If Pang Yuan dares to do anything to you, I believe that young master will be the first to not spare her. I'm not afraid that she will do anything to me openly, but I'm afraid that she will do something secretly to catch us off guard. Shuangshi, you have to remember that this is Brimming Kingdom after all. It's her world, not Feng country. I know everything there. I need time to adapt to the environment and the people here, to understand them. Not only that. In this harem, be it the concubines or servants, they really don't like Pang Yuan, but it doesn't mean that they will accept me because of that. Even if they flatter me on the surface, they all have their own schemes. You have to be careful. Don't worry, Mississippi. I'll remember your words. I'll be careful. You're just a lowly girl from Feng country. Since when did you become so arrogant? Even I need to report to you if I want to see you. At this moment, a sharp voice came from outside, with a faintly discernible sarcasm. Every single word of this sentence was like a needle piercing into the hearts of those who heard it, making them feel extremely uncomfortable. The clothes on her body were not neatly put on, and the ambiguous marks on her neck proved that what she had guessed last night was true. Immediately, Pang Yuan's face, which she had managed to suppress with great difficulty, became incomparably hideous. She clenched her fists and was about to step forward and hit her. However, due to the white-haired granny's threats last night, she spent a lot of effort to forcibly suppress the flames of jealousy and hatred in her heart. He was used to seeing all kinds of beauties in the back palace. Every year, there were at least a dozen women who entered the palace. They were all personally chosen by the Empress Dowager for her brother, the Emperor, and every one of them was a beauty that could topple a city. But after seeing Shen Yueji, she was still stunned by her beauty. However, due to the indignation in the girl's heart, she forced herself not to show her amazement. Instead, she looked at her coldly. With such beauty, how did you manage to seduce my brother, the Emperor, and make him unable to stop himself from you? If you only rely on your seductive tricks in bed, it's really despicable. Imperial concubine Pang, my young lady is new here and doesn't like to cause trouble. You'd better show some mercy. Even in Brimming Kingdom, she's not someone you can insult. Chapter 797. You lowly servant, who do you think you are? My concubine is speaking. Do you have the right to interrupt? Xiao stepped forward and was about to slap her. As a martial artist, she was not afraid of this woman's weak strength. She didn't even look at her. She raised her hand and slapped her face. Xiao didn't expect that no matter how high their status was in the Feng Nation, this was the northern underworld, her concubine's territory. Instead of keeping a low profile, they dared to be so arrogant. And there was no fear on their faces. It was obvious that they didn't care about her and her concubine at all. Just like you said, it's not a crime for you to interrupt when the masters are speaking. She waved her hand, her face full of disdain. My miss doesn't have this honor, but does Imperial concubine Pang have it? Don't tell me you've forgotten that before you came to the North Underworld, who was the one who secretly wanted to harm my young lady's life? Not to mention my young lady, you even wanted to harm your longtime friend's life because of your selfishness. In this world, is there anything that you, Imperial concubine Pang, can't do? If you can be so disrespectful to my miss, then don't think about getting my miss to respect you. What a sharp-tongued lowly servant. It seems that you don't know whose territory this is. Hearing this, Shen Yueji smiled. If we know, of course we know. This is the Northern Underworld's imperial palace, the Emperor's harem. The country's surname is Brimming Shang, not you, Pang Yuan. You, what do you mean? Pang Yuan's expression changed. Nothing. I just think that I've made myself clear enough. It's just that you, Imperial concubine Pang, don't understand. This is Brimming Shang's country, not your Pang family's. What I do, who I don't respect, even if someone wants to interfere, it should be him. It's not your place to talk. That's right. She snorted. Not only that, in the future, my miss will be the Empress of the Dark North Kingdom. Imperial consort Pang, which one is more important, the Empress or you, the Imperial consort of the Dark North Kingdom? Which one is more important? Who has more authority? Shen Yueji. You, a concubine of the Feng Nation's Emperor, want to be the Northern Underworld's Empress. What kind of place do you really think the Northern Dark Kingdom is? You're so filthy, do you think you deserve it? Imperial consort Pang came so early. Don't you know that the Emperor doted on me last night and that I'm still a virgin? What did you say? It was like a bolt from the blue. How could this be? Shen Yueji was the imperial concubine of Feng country. Moreover, she had specially sent people to investigate the Emperor of Feng country, Feng Zhiqing. Even if he didn't have the habit of pampering his imperial concubine before, he did pamper his imperial concubine later on. Not only that, he seemed to like Shinyuaji very much. For Shinyuaji, he could abandon his most beloved empress. Since he liked Shinyuaji so much, it was impossible for him not to pamper her. And she actually told him about her virginity mark. Her virginity. Was she still clean when her brother, the emperor, favored her? What? You don't believe me? If you don't believe me, why don't you ask him? He had the most say in this matter. But Shinyuaji smiled. It depends on whether you dare to ask or not. Would he even bother to tell you? Chapter 798. Disdain. Of course, he disdained. All these years, she had been the one who had taken the initiative to look for him. As for him, after so many years, he had turned a blind eye to all the things she had done behind his back. He had never once placed her in his heart or in his eyes. In her brother's heart, he didn't love her at all. He didn't like her, she didn't dare to ask. If she did, she was afraid that her brother would hate her even more in the end. After all, but Pang Yuan wasn't willing to admit defeat. Her brother was the man she had loved for so many years. So many years, she loved him. For him, she was willing to give everything she had and never regretted it. In the past, the reason why she was able to be so calm was because he was able to remain indifferent when faced with so many beauties in the harem. As for her, because she had her father as her backing, she was even more unscrupulous and did not need to care about those women at all. In particular, women only had a few years of life. As long as her brother didn't like them for a few years, they would grow old and become yellow pearls. She didn't have to worry about them at all. Only those who were exceptionally beautiful would be. She would order people to deal with them when she was in a bad mood. The others, she had left them to fend for themselves in the harem. In the past, she had thought that her brother would know what she had done secretly and would think that she was cruel and merciless. He would hate her and not like her. Later, when her brother, the emperor, learned of the things she had done behind his back, he did not say anything, much less do anything to her. She self-righteously believed that her brother, the emperor, had her in his heart and loved her. At least all these years, she didn't do it alone. She had always believed that one day, she would move her brother. Sometimes, in order to attract her brother's attention, she would kill even more people and use even more cruel methods. Her goal was just to make him look at her one more time. Nyang, don't be fooled by this little slut. She knows that Nyang is in pain and is purposely poking at your pain. This woman's heart is vicious. We still don't know why she came to our dark North Kingdom to get close to His Majesty. Nyang, you mustn't be fooled by a few words from her. Xiao watched her reaction worriedly, especially when she saw her staggering and about to fall. She hurried forward to support her. No one knew if it was because of Xiao's words, or if it was because of Shinyuaji's identity. Yes, it didn't matter if her brother, the emperor, was only interested in her for a moment or if he truly liked her. But when she thought about it again, she remembered her father's words. In the royal family, there was no true love. Most of it was just a momentary indulgence. She knew that her brother, the emperor, was only interested in her for a moment. He would not like her for long. Thinking of this, a proud smile appeared on her face. She no longer looked at Shinyuaji, but looked at the maid beside her. Since I am in charge of the 6 palaces and have the seal in my hands, I will naturally punish those who do not know what to do and kill those who should be killed. Otherwise, people in the palace will think that I only know how to put on airs and do not know how to punish the people in the harem who break the law. Your Highness, this servant is here. Go, bring in the lowly servant who obstructed me just now. She didn't even have the wits to make me wait outside to report. Yes, Your Highness. Chapter 799. Shuangxi revealed a proud smile and ordered people to drag in the servant girl who was beaten half to death. That little palace maid had delicate features, but she didn't know how to be flexible. Before the emperor left, Eunuch Lu specifically told her to look after Miss Shin and not let anyone disturb her, even when the Empress Dowager came. She was a good servant who listened to her master's words seriously. Eunuch Lu was the emperor's favorite, and since Eunuch Lu had said so, she naturally had to listen to his orders respectfully. Even if she knew that imperial consort Pang was difficult to provoke, she still did so in order to listen to Eunuch Lu. She was covered in blood. It was easy to imagine how Pang Yuan had ordered people to torture and whip her before she had entered the palace. And the little girl also had a backbone. Although Zhengyang Palace was big, anyone who suffered inhumane torture would be in so much pain that they wanted to die and scream. But during the time she was talking with Pang Yuan, she had been gritting her teeth and didn't cry out half a word. She didn't even beg for mercy. This made Shin Yueji couldn't help but look at her a few more times. This little girl had a strong and unyielding character. The little palace maid was lying on the ground in a sorry state. Her 10 fingers were also covered in blood. She had been tortured to the point that she didn't look like a human. The place where she was lying was quickly dyed with a sea of blood. But she still stubbornly raised her head, and her eyes were neither servile nor overbearing. This servant was only listening to the emperor's instructions before he left. I don't know what I did wrong to make imperial consort Pang so angry that she wanted to kill this servant. A mere lowly maid dares to shamelessly ask the imperial consort what you've done wrong. Your mistake is that you don't have your own opinion. Xiao coldly shouted, in this harem, you can't tell who is the master and who is the servant. You can't tell who is the master and who is the servant? I think the one who really can't tell this is imperial consort Pang, right? As long as you have a brain, you should know who the northern underworld belongs to. This maidservant only obeyed His Majesty's orders before he left, yet you accused her of committing a crime and privately punished her. Shin Yueji, this is Ben Gong's harem. Since Ben Gong is the imperial concubine of the North Sea, I have the right to deal with everything in the harem. You haven't become the emperor's brother's empress yet and you want to control me? Do you think that even if you become the empress, you can ride on my head and behave atrociously? Xiao, Your Highness. Gouge out this lowly servant's tongue for this consort. Yes. He saw Xiao instructing people to come forward. The maidservant's expression was neither servile nor overbearing. She gritted her teeth and said, your Pang family only exists because of Grand Preceptor Pang. If it weren't for your father's identity, Pang Yuan, how could you be so arrogant in this harem until now? Perhaps she found it funny. She suddenly raised her head and laughed out loud. What a pity. You're such a selfish and vicious woman. You've been infatuated with His Majesty for so many years, but His Majesty has never looked at you. Even a woman from the Feng country is many times better than you in His Majesty's eyes. The woman's words were undoubtedly like a knife stabbing deeply into Pang Yuan's heart. At that moment, it could really be described as dripping with blood. She glared at her fiercely. Good, lowly servant girl. You're about to die, yet you still dare to bare your fangs and claws. Today, I want to see how much endurance you have. What are you all standing there for? Hurry up and do it. Chapter 800. Miss Shuangxi saw that the servant was so protective of her mistress. If she did not help her, she might really be destroyed by the vicious woman, Pang Yuan. However, her mistress did not ask her to stop her, so she was a little uncertain. It was true that the young miss abhorred evil, but she would never look on coldly from the sidelines towards those who had helped her. She had just met this servant from the North Sea and felt that she was not a bad person. She did not look like the other women in the palace. Shin Yueji glanced at the little servant and smiled. An imperial concubine of a country, for her own selfish desire, allied with the dark poison cult and wanted to kill me. Not only that, but you also wanted to kill the emperor's close friend and trusted bodyguard. I don't know what will happen to imperial concubine Pang's reputation if this was spread out. Sure enough, as soon as Shin Yueji said this, Pang Yuan's face turned pale. She stared at her fiercely. Shin Yueji, what do you mean? Are you threatening me? Threatening? Shin Yueji sneered. It's not a threat. I just want to remind imperial concubine Pang. Because of punishing a servant girl, he ruined his own reputation. Although I have never seen Grand Tutor Pang, I have heard of his name. Presumably, what he disdains the most is associating with the evil and crooked sects of Jianghu. In addition, imperial concubine Pang is his only daughter. She is the pearl in his palm since she was young. If he knew that his daughter, whom he had high hopes for, had colluded with the dark poison cult to kill me and even the white-haired granny, Ji Chuhong and Fui, I don't know how Imperial Tutor Pang would feel when he finds out. Shin Yueji. Pang Yuan was completely angry this time. Rather than being angry, it would be better to say that she was afraid. Her father did not know about this. He had been an official for so many years, and he had always been righteous. He could not stand those who played tricks behind his back. If her father knew that she had colluded with the dark poison cult, she did not dare to think about the consequences. Although her father loved her, she could not touch the bottom line. If her father, because of Shin Yueji's words, she looked at Shin Yueji with no more confidence. Shin Yueji, what do you want? Hearing this, Shin Yueji smiled slightly. What do I want? I should be the one asking Imperial Consort Pang this question. What do you want? You are the Feng country's emperor's imperial concubine Shin. You are doted on by everyone. Don't think that I don't know you. Since the Feng nation's emperor dotes on you so much, why did you seduce my brother emperor? Shin Yueji, tell me, what are you plotting? What is your purpose in coming to the northern underworld? Are you planning to do something to Brimming? Imperial Consort Pang, you've really misunderstood me. I'm just a woman. My parents are still in the Feng nation. What can I do? As for why I came to the northern underworld, of course it's because I liked the emperor when he was in the Feng nation. I liked him even after I entered the palace. What's wrong with following the man I like to the northern underworld? Do you think I will believe your words? Shin Yueji, you have bad intentions. You want to start a war between the two nations. Since ancient times, the emperor has always been ambitious. If you blame the war between the two nations on a woman, don't you think that your actions and words are too direct? Chapter 801. Pang Yuan was an experienced person, so she naturally understood the meaning behind Shin Yueji's words. However, because of what Shin Yueji had just said, she knew that it was too late to deny it. Even the white-haired granny knew about it, let alone her. She was afraid that Shin Yueji would really tell her father about it. She's just a lowly servant. It's all the same to me whether she lives or dies. Forget it, for your sake, I'll spare this lowly servant's life today. Your Highness. Let's go. Your Highness. Looked at her in confusion. Your Highness, are you really going to let this lowly servant go? If it weren't for Shin Yueji and the others' presence, Pang Yuan would have slapped her again. This lowly servant was constantly reminding her and making her lose face. She knew that Shin Yueji had a handle on her, but she didn't dare to do anything to her. But she still dared to say these words in front of her. If this wasn't embarrassing her in public, then what was it? After Xiao Er's words fell, she received a cold look from Pang Yuan. Xiao Er was startled and quickly shut her mouth. Knowing that she had said the wrong thing, she lowered her head even more. Mother! Your Highness! This servant deserves to die, humph. Pang Yuan snorted coldly and left with a flick of her sleeve. She had originally come to cause trouble for Xinyueji, but in the end, she was the one who had a handle on her. If Xiao Er wanted to do anything to her in the future, she would use it to threaten her. This wasn't a good thing for her. She might even have to look at Xinyueji's expression when talking to her in the future. The more Pang Yuan thought about it, the angrier she felt. Those good-for-nothings from the dark poison cult couldn't even do such a small thing. It seemed that she had placed too much hope on them. However, whenever she thought of Xinyueji's smug face, Pang Yuan gnashed her teeth in hatred. Bitch, don't be too happy too early. One day, I'll make you regret it. I'll expose your ugly face and evil deeds to Brother Emperor. Get up quickly. Since you know that Pang Yuan is vicious, why are you still going against her so openly? After Pang Yuan left, Shuangxi hurriedly went forward to help her up. He saw that she was covered in blood, but she did not show any signs of pain. She could not help but sigh at this woman's strength. If it was a woman from the Feng nation, she would have cried and kowtowed to admit her guilt. Is Pang Yuan your enemy? Not understanding why Xinyueji would say such a thing, Shuangxi raised his head and looked at her. Miss? The woman's blood-stained face finally showed some expression because of Xinyueji's words. She looked up at Xinyueji and suddenly smiled. No wonder His Majesty likes Miss Shen so much. Miss Shen really has something worth liking. Even Pang Yuan herself didn't realize how meticulous her observation was. No matter how bold a servant in the palace was, he wouldn't dare to directly confront an imperial concubine. Moreover, based on Pang Yuan's character, she knew that confronting such a vicious woman would only bring her harm and no benefits. Perhaps, she might even lose her life because of this. But she still went against her fearlessly. Even though she knew that Xinyueji wouldn't be afraid, others would think that she was doing it for Xinyueji. In fact, only Xinyueji knew the truth. If she wanted to chat with more like-minded people about explosively cute favorite concubine, Prince Regent, gets into trouble, follow Yue Literature. Chapter 802. She opened her mouth and smiled, looking pitiful. My parents died early, and my sister and I depended on each other since we were young. Sometimes, when we didn't have enough to eat, when the weather was cold, and we couldn't wear warm clothes, it was my sister who took care of me. When there was nothing to eat, she cut off her own flesh, cooked it, and told me that it was given to her by a kind-hearted person. My sister loved me very much, and she treated me very well. Later, as I grew up, in order to support me, she told me to enter the palace. We didn't ask for anything when we entered the palace, just to have enough to eat. Even if we were bullied by the old people every day, at least, we would have enough to eat and wear warm clothes. Because my sister was eloquent and nimble, she was sent to Pang Yuan's bedroom to take care of her food, clothing, and transportation. As for me, I was calm when things happened, unlike those people who flattered her, so Eunuch Lu let me stay in Jingyang Palace to take care of everything. As for my elder sister, I thought that we would finally be able to find a way out of this harem. But I didn't expect that one day, my elder sister accidentally knocked over a jade vessel in front of Pang Yuan. That jade vessel was something she didn't use, but Pang Yuan still ordered her to be beaten to death. It's just an ordinary piece of jade. Speaking of the past, the woman couldn't understand. There were blood stains and tears on her face, and the blood slid down the wound on her face. She only felt that it was ironic. The people of the royal family always treat human lives like grass. What did my sister do wrong? She had only accidentally broken a jade artifact, an ordinary jade artifact that was not even worth mentioning. Why was it that in Pang Yuan's eyes, her sister's life was not even comparable to an ordinary jade artifact? My sister even gave up her life because of this. What's funny is that I entered the palace with my sister, and at that time, when she needed help the most, I didn't know anything. I was the last to know that she died. A lowly servant passing away in the palace was not worth mentioning at all. The woman's voice sounded like she was about to cry. My sister and I grew up together. After we entered the palace, we supported each other. She would give me the delicious food that the palace supervisor gave her, and I would tell her eunuch Lu's praises of me. You don't know how happy she was. I thought that we could live a carefree life in the palace, but it turns out that I was thinking too much. When she learned of her sister's death, she was angry and full of hatred. She didn't even feel this much when she was with her sister, even when they were poor. But now, when she learned of her sister's death, when she learned that Pang Yuan had ordered her to be beaten to death despite not having done anything wrong, she realized for the first time that this was what hatred was. She hated Pang Yuan. She hated her identity even more. She hated her incompetence. She hated that Pang Yuan was in a high position and had the backing of the Pang family. She was just a lowly servant who couldn't do anything. All she could do was look at her enemy every day, but when she thought of her sister. After her sister's death, she was disheartened. In addition to thinking of her sister, she saw her sister getting snubbed by the emperor every day, and she felt a little proud in her heart. Only when she saw her sister lost her soul, she felt happy in her heart. Although she couldn't take revenge on her, seeing her like this was the only comfort for her. Chapter 803. Shuangxi understood the meaning behind the maid's words. She had thought that Lin Mingya was being so kind to her mistress just now. However, Lin Mingya sympathized with her after hearing what she had said and what she had experienced. When a person was down and out, she only had one family member, and this family member was her sky and her everything. Lin Mingya guessed that even though she had entered the palace, her sister must still be important to her. Now that she knew her sister's death, it was as if the sky had collapsed in an instant. When a person was not afraid of death, she would not be afraid of Pang Yuan's weight and status in her heart. She was not afraid of death. That was why she dared to look at her. Since Miss Shen knew that I was not being kind to you, why did you still save me from her hands? Everyone in the imperial harem knows that it's better to offend the Empress Dowager than to offend imperial consort Pang. You are from the Feng country, and the emperor likes you very much. I'm afraid Pang Yuan has hated you for a long time. The more you look down on her, the more she wants to get rid of you. It's not a wise move for you to be targeted by such a person. Why? Even if I don't offend her, she will still kill me. Didn't you hear my conversation with her just now? I am from the Feng country, and I came to the northern underworld from thousands of miles away. I have no backer but the emperor. Shouldn't I seize this opportunity? Since I'm going to die sooner or later, why can't I be proud for a while? It's not too late to die after I kill her. The corner of Shuangxi's mouth twitched when she heard her mistress's words. As long as the son-in-law was here, how could Miss die? And there was also the white-haired granny. Judging from the granny's attitude, she seemed to like Miss very much and was even more reluctant to let anything happen to Mississippi. As for why I saved you, I was just curious. I saw that you were only a palace maid with no one to rely on in the palace, but you had the courage to oppose Pang Yuan. Therefore, based on your courage, I wanted to save you. Shuangxi. Mississippi, take her down and bandage her wound. She's injured. If she doesn't bandage her wound, I'm afraid I won't be able to save her even if I wanted to. Yes, Mississippi, this servant Wanqing thanks Miss Shen for saving my life. Before leaving, Wanqing suddenly knelt down in front of her. Shen young lady saved this servant's life. In the future, this servant's life will be Shen young lady's. If Shen young lady needs this servant to do anything, this servant will not hesitate to die 10,000 times and go into the fire. There will not be a single word of complaint. Speaking of which, I've just arrived here and I'm not familiar with anything. I do need a servant girl who is familiar with this place to explain things to me about the North Sea. Shen Yueji nodded. You may leave. Yes. Ci and Palace. After thinking about it, Tang Yuan felt that she still needed to see the Empress Dowager. Otherwise, she wouldn't be able to understand the Empress Dowager's intentions. She tried her best to suppress the anger she received from Shen Yueji. The purpose was that she was afraid that Cian would see something at that time. Previously, she had some doubts about Cian's attitude towards her. Later, she called her father into the palace without telling him. Although her father didn't know that she was secretly cooperating with the dark poisonous cult, Cian must have said a lot of bad things about her. Otherwise, her father wouldn't be so angry. Thinking of this, Tang Yuan couldn't help but get angry. Chapter 804. That damned old woman. She respected her so much since she entered the palace. She didn't have a mother since she was a child and treated the Empress Dowager as her own mother. For her, the Empress Dowager cooked for her and learned embroidery for her. She spent a lot of effort to please her. However, the Empress Dowager hid it from her and protected an outsider. For a bitch from Feng country, she didn't hesitate to invite the white-haired granny back. Imperial concubine, the Empress Dowager is not feeling well today and has gone to bed. Why are you here? The woman's voice caught Tang Yuan off guard. Tang Yuan suddenly came to her senses and looked at Nanny Zhu, who appeared in front of her. She didn't even have time to retract the ferocious expression on her face. She didn't know how much of it Nanny Zhu had seen. Tang Yuan tried to hide her embarrassment with a smile. Nanny Zhu, I haven't seen the Empress Dowager for a day. I want to come and talk to her. By the way, you said the Empress Dowager is not feeling well. Is she sick? Did she see the imperial physician? Is she all right? Nanny Zhu smiled and said in a neither servile nor overbearing manner, Imperial concubine, don't worry. The Empress Dowager has been suffering from the same old illness. She will be fine after a rest. But I'm afraid that you won't be able to see the Empress Dowager this time. If you have anything to say, you can tell me first. When the Empress Dowager wakes up, I will pass the message to the Empress Dowager on behalf of you. Seeing that Nanny Zhu had said this, Tang Yuan didn't have the strength to go in even if she wanted to. She could only force a smile on her face. In that case, thank you, Nanny Zhu. I came here for nothing. I just wanted to see the Empress Dowager. After all, I would come here every day to talk to the Empress Dowager. After saying that, she turned around and left. Imperial concubine. Nanny Zhu stopped her from behind. Tang Yuan turned around and looked at her. Nanny Zhu, what do you want to say to me? All these years, the Empress Dowager has been very kind and tolerant to Imperial Consort. I'm sure Imperial Consort has seen it with your own eyes. Tang Yuan also smiled and said, Nanny Zhu is right. The Empress Dowager has always treated me as her own daughter all these years, and so have I. I didn't have a mother since I was a child, so I treat the Empress Dowager as my own mother. No matter what it is, I will tell the Empress Dowager, and the Empress Dowager loves me as always. Senior servant Zhu suddenly smiled. The Empress Dowager treats Imperial Consort Nyang very well. Not to mention other things, just the tolerance and indulgence she has shown over the years is something that we, as servants, can all see. Furthermore, both the Emperor and the Empress Dowager were aware of what Imperial Consort Nyang had done in the inner palace. Moreover, the Empress Dowager has covered up for you countless times. Pang Yuan finally sensed that something was wrong from her words. She looked at her and asked, "Nanny Zhu, what exactly do you want to say to me?" What this servant wants to say is naturally the intention of the Empress Dowager. This servant just wants to remind Imperial Consort Pang that Xin Yueji is from the Foam country and has ulterior motives in coming to the Brimming kingdom. She is the woman that the Emperor has taken a fancy to. Moreover, the Empress Dowager has also recognized her as her future daughter-in-law. What Imperial Consort Nyang did to Miss Shen previously, the Empress Dowager only thinks that Imperial Consort Nyang is young and immature. In addition, you are proud and arrogant, so it is inevitable that you will make some mistakes. Chapter 805. The Empress Dowager is also willing to forgive you. As for now, since Miss Shen has entered the palace safely, the Empress Dowager also hopes that Imperial Consort Zhu can stop having such thoughts and don't do it again in the future. Otherwise, it will make the Emperor unhappy, and even the Empress Dowager can't cover it up for you. The Emperor has always been a very opinionated person. He rarely interfered in the Emperor's affairs, and the Emperor doesn't want the Empress Dowager to interfere. The Empress Dowager is also a certain age, so I hope. Seeing that Pang Yuan's face gradually became ferocious, Nanny Zhu wisely stopped what she was about to say and looked at her quietly. Pang Yuan clenched her fists. Because of anger, her ferocious face was no longer as gentle and beautiful as before. What did the Empress Dowager mean? If she still didn't understand the Empress Dowager's meaning at this time, she would be a fool. The Empress Dowager meant that the Empress Dowager could protect her in the past, but now Xin Yueji was here. If she did something bad to Xin Yueji again, the Empress Dowager would no longer protect her, but Xin Yueji, that bitch? For a moment, it was even more difficult for her to accept it. The white-haired old lady was already hard for her to accept. Although the white-haired old lady was the same as her, when the white-haired old lady protected Xin Yueji, she already thought that it might be the Empress Dowager's idea. Now hearing Nanny Zhu's words, she had no hesitation to think that maybe the Empress Dowager was sitting in Ci and palace now, not resting at all, and not feeling sick. She just didn't want to see her. After all, Nanny Zhu was an experienced person. She could more or less know Pang Yuan's character. She stopped when she was right and didn't say anything more. She didn't intend to say anything else. Pang Yuan was arrogant, but she was not a fool. Because of Nanny Zhu's identity, she was the Empress Dowager's favorite. In addition, she had watched Nanny Zhu grow up. Just because of these two reasons, Pang Yuan knew that she could not vent her anger on Nanny Zhu. She gritted her teeth and clenched her fists hard. Nanny Zhu glanced at her and said no more, "Your Highness, please go back. I still have to serve the Empress Dowager." Nanny Zhu turned around and went back to the bedroom. Xiao looked at Pang Yuan's face, which was as sinister as a ghost. He wanted to say something, but he didn't dare to. He was deeply afraid that he would say something at this moment and offend her. If that happened, he would definitely suffer a terrible fate. "Your Highness, it's windy outside. Why don't we go back to the palace first?" "Back to the palace?" Pang Yuan suddenly smiled. "What are we going back for? Is there still a place for me in this palace?" "Your Highness." The Empress Dowager's words are already very clear. She is siding with that bitch. She really couldn't understand it. Her face was full of hatred. "Tell me, what's so good about that bitch? What kind of aphrodisiac did she feed them?" Brother Emperor, the white-haired granny, Hong Fui, and Ji Chu, why did they all side with her? What's so good about her? She just wanted to kill that woman. She grabbed Xiao-er's collar and said, "Tell me, am I not doing this for Brother Emperor? That woman is from the Foam Kingdom. She is the imperial concubine of the Foam Kingdom's emperor. How can she be the empress of the Dark North Kingdom with her identity? What if she has ulterior motives?" If you want to chat with more like-minded people about explosively cute pet concubine, regent, get into trouble, follow Yudu Literature on WeChat. Chat about life and find bosom friends. Chapter 806. Empress Dowager, let's not talk about Brother Emperor. Empress Dowager is a smart person. How could she allow such a woman with ulterior motives to stay in the northern underworld and be the empress? What do you think Empress Dowager has been drugged by that woman? Brother Emperor is muddle-headed. Is she also muddle-headed? Mother. Your Highness, this is Ci and Palace. If Empress Dowager hears what you said, that was a great disrespect. Xiao reminded her with some fear. After all, Peng Yuan had scruples about Xiao-er's words. In the end, she glared at her fiercely and turned away angrily. Since Empress Dowager deliberately favored that bitch, one day, she would let her see with her own eyes the price she paid for today's ignorance. She left Ci and Palace. Empress Dowager half closed her eyes and pretended to be asleep. When she saw Granny Zhu come in, she sat up a little. Empress Dowager can predict everything, but what? Ci and smiled, Granny Zhu, you've been with me for so many years. What's there to hesitate about? Just say it. I'm worried that Xin Yueji may not be a match for concubine Pang. In addition, Empress Dowager's favoritism is so obvious. Empress Dowager also knows concubine Pang's thoughts. The more you favor Xin Yueji, the more she will hate Xin Yueji. I'm worried that if concubine Pang plays tricks behind the scenes, Miss Xin will be at a disadvantage. Hearing this, Empress Dowager suddenly smiled, Granny Zhu, do you think an old woman like me can't defeat a little girl? Granny Zhu smiled, Empress Dowager, I don't mean that. Empress Dowager has followed His Majesty into the palace since she was young. Although she has never experienced any serious palace fights and His Majesty has always protected her well, Empress Dowager also knows that if the women in the harem really fight, they will be in deep water. They are no worse than those soldiers who go to war outside. I'm worried that Miss Xin has just come to the northern underworld. Even if she is protected by His Majesty and Empress Dowager, I'm still worried. I don't know when Imperial Consort Nyang has secretly contacted those evil sects in Jianghu behind the Empress Dowager's back, this servant is. I have also thought about what Mother Zhu is worried about, but... Xian paused. If that Xin Yueji didn't know anything and was so easily eliminated by how could she be our Dark North Empress? When I followed the late Emperor, there were many women who wanted to kill me. If your man is too outstanding, you don't have to worry about being targeted by others. Being able to keep your man, that's what's amazing about you. I'm protecting her because Shang-er likes her. Shang-er is my son. I've watched him grow up, but I've never seen him care so much about a woman. Since he likes her, I can persuade myself to accept her. Whether it's Xin Yueji or Pang Yuan, although I'm selfish, I'm partial to as my daughter-in-law. After all, I've watched grow up. Although she's vicious, at least I'm the Empress Dowager of the Northern Underworld. As long as I don't interfere in her affairs, she won't dare to do anything to me. In addition, her father is loyal to the Northern Underworld. I'm more happy than anyone to see them succeed. It's just a pity I want to chat with more like-minded people about explosively cute pet concubine, regent, get into trouble. Chat about life and find confidence. Chapter 807. Shang didn't like her, and she couldn't do anything about it. As a mother, she could consider for the sake of the people and the country in the North Underworld. But she knew better than anyone else about the relationship between a man and a woman, especially when they were in love. The man gave her everything. Although the country was important, he was protecting others. But it was different when he had someone he liked. He was not protecting others, but his true love, the love of his life. Speaking up to this point, Xian closed his eyes. I only have one son. No matter what I do, I must think of him. As long as he is willing, I will not hesitate to pay any price just to make him happy and happy. Maybe Wan and he are not destined to be together. If he really likes Wan he should have fallen in love with her many years ago, instead of, until now, he could still like someone else because of her. Empress Dowager, Miss Shen has come to the harem of the North Underworld. The white-haired granny seems to like her very much. These days, she has been staying in Jingyang Palace to protect her secretly. She hasn't even come to your place. This was something that had never happened before. Apart from meeting the emperor, the white-haired old woman spent most of her time in the Empress Dowager's place and chatting with her. This old thing is still the same as before. She has high standards. For so many years, no matter how Wan tried to please her, she didn't like Wan But Shin Yueji doesn't need to please her at all. She just wants to get close to her. It seems. She smiled. This Shin Yueji indeed had her outstanding points. Otherwise, she wouldn't have made a person with such high standards repeatedly lower his own status to protect her so thoroughly. But Miss Shin. Ordinary women will come to see the Empress Dowager first when they enter the palace. But she doesn't want to come. It seems that if the Empress Dowager doesn't summon her, she won't come to see you. This girl can't figure out my mind, so she is waiting for me to summon her. Believe it or not, as long as I don't summon her, even if Shang really makes her the Empress, she won't come to see me. After hearing the Empress Dowager's words, Nanny Zhu hesitated. Well, Empress Dowager, is Shin Yueji's character good or bad? In the years of others, it's naturally not good. She's spoiled and arrogant, even looking down on me, the Empress Dowager. However, Ai Jia happens to be the opposite of what others see. She does not take the initiative to pay her respects to Ai Jia, which is what makes her outstanding. It means that she will not curry favor with those in power. Unlike those women in the harem who say things against their will to please you. Nanny Zhu understood Empress Dowager's words more or less. She nodded and said, Then, Empress Dowager, do you want to take the initiative to summon Miss Shin? Yes. Xian nodded and said, After all, she is my future daughter-in-law. That old woman is ahead of me, so I naturally can't be slower than her. However, now is not the time. You and I only need to observe in secret for a period of time. As for what Xian's observation was referring to, Xian didn't say, and Nanny Zhu didn't dare to ask. She just respectfully bowed her head and said, Yes, Empress Dowager. Puryang Palace. Almost as soon as Pang Yuan came back, the tea table and jewelry in front of her were directly slapped down by her angrily. The crackling sound echoed harshly in the hall. If you want to chat with more like-minded people about exploding cute pet concubine, regent, get into trouble, follow Yudu literature. Chapter 808. Even the servants in the palace, seeing her so angry appearance, were scared to kneel on the ground. Your Highness, please calm down. Your Highness, please calm down. Xiao knelt on the ground in fear. If it was before, she would still dare to go forward to calm her anger. During this time, she found that the anger of Her Highness was getting stronger and stronger, and it was not something that a servant like her could calm down. Moreover, if she didn't manage to calm herself down, the Empress would vent her anger on her. In other people's eyes, she had grown up with Guifei Nyang and had been by her side since she was a child. Not only was she a favorite of Guifei Nyang, even the servants in the palace all respected her, feared her, and were afraid of offending her. In fact, only Xiao herself knew that it was okay if the highness was not angry, but she was afraid of the highness in anger. Not to mention that she was a servant who followed her since childhood, even the relatives around her, she could kill because of anger. Hong Fui and the white-haired grandmother were a good example. Anyone who went against her, she would not care what their identity was. Where is it that this highness did not do well enough? Since this highness entered the palace, I have been careful. Whether it is the Empress Dowager, Hong Fui, the brothers of the emperor, or the grandmother, I have always treated them as my relatives. Now, one by one, for an outsider, they treat me like this. The more she thought about it, the angrier she got. Pang Yuan clenched her fists, and a pair of sharp eyes were scarlet because of anger. Now even a cheap servant beside the Empress Dowager dares to use this tone to talk to this highness. This highness was raised by her since childhood. They have not even seen Shen Yueji's face, and they dare to treat me like this. Ah! She shouted angrily, and even the coffee table in front of her was pushed to the ground by her. She saw the servants of the Pure Yang Palace kneeling on the ground and stepped forward to kick them, a group of dogs. What is the use of this highness to raise you? You are a group of ungrateful people who can't distinguish between good and bad. You all deserve to die, all deserve to die. The slaves of the Pure Yang Palace knelt on the ground and shivered. Even when Pang Yuan beat and scolded them, they did not dare to fight back. Although Pang Yuan was a woman, she was as strong as a man when it came to beating and scolding them. She wanted to vent all her strength on them. Seeing that a servant girl's face was bleeding, Xiao retreated in fear. She was deeply afraid that if her ladyship saw this, she wouldn't know when her ladyship's merciless fist and scissors would land on her. Oh, younger sister was wondering why there was no one outside. Luckily, Ben Gong didn't even need to come in to report. So it turns out that Imperial concubine Jijia is here to beat people up to vent her anger. A frivolous and sarcastic voice came from outside. The woman's voice was like the cry of an oriole, but in Pang Yuan's ears, it was very ear-piercing. She abruptly raised her head, and her gaze shifted from the servants to the person who had just entered. She was dressed in a graceful pink gown and silk satin, making her look even more alluring and alluring. Heavy makeup made her whole person full of a seductive aura. Pang Yuan's gaze only fell on her for a moment, and she quickly retracted it. She said sarcastically, "Who is this highness?" It turns out to be the one from the charming palace. Speaking of the name of the charming palace, it was the Empress Dowager who gave her the name. If you want to chat with more like-minded people about exploding cute pet concubine, Prince Regent, get into trouble, WeChat, chat about life, find a bosom friend. Chapter 809. This was because Shangguan Mei's beauty aside, her body and appearance were even more seductive than a vixen's. It was hard for a man not to have a reaction to her. In addition, Shangguan Mei's father was a first-grade prime minister. Her position in the court was even more important. Although it was not comparable to the Pang family, she was also a loyal minister who had followed the late emperor for many years. Even the emperor's brother valued the Shangguan family. She was also the only woman in the harem who dared to look down on Pang Yuan. Moreover, he liked to go against her at all times. It could be imagined that when Pang Yuan saw her now, she would not have a good expression on her face. Her ferocious face was even more ugly. "Shangguan Mei, how dare you come to the Pure Yang Palace of this palace and dare to enter without notifying me? Do you still take this palace as the master of the harem?" Shangguan Mei did not show the slightest fear when she heard this. Instead, she covered her lips and smiled. "Look at what sister is saying. You are only in charge of the Phoenix Seal. The Emperor did not say that you will be the Empress. Besides, isn't the Empress of the Northern Underworld already chosen? I'm afraid you won't be able to control the Phoenix Seal for long. Seeing that Pang Yuan's face was getting uglier, Shangwan Mei did not feel afraid because of her anger. She still said to herself, also, when sister came in just now, I already told sister that it is not that sister doesn't know the rules and came to see sister imperial concubine. I don't know how to let someone report. It is really. The servants of the Pure Yang Palace have been summoned here by sister to punish them. Even if sister wants you, to report, it is useless. Right, you, In order to prove what she said, Shangwan Mei looked at the maid beside her. You, was respectful. What the Empress said is right, imperial concubine. It's not that my Empress doesn't want this slave to report, it's really that you don't have a slave outside the hall of the Pure Yang Palace. This slave's Empress is worried about whether imperial concubine has an accident, so she rushed in without authorization to see if imperial concubine is safe. Pang Yuan only felt a chill in her heart. She sneered a few times. Even her anger could not be vented. Does sister imperial concubine mean that I should be grateful to you? Thank you for your concern. Shangwan Mei chuckled softly. Younger sister and imperial concubine Jijia entered the palace at about the same time. Speaking of which, I've been in the palace for so many years. I've more or less understood imperial concubine Jijia's character and temperament. There's no need to thank me. Instead, this younger sister has to thank imperial concubine Jeyu for her tolerance and nurturing all these years. Bang! Pang Yuan suddenly slammed the table in front of her. Shangwan Mei paused, but she didn't say anything. Instead, she looked at Pang Yuan with a smile. You don't visit me for no reason. Speak, what is your purpose for coming to see me? Or, she narrowed her eyes dangerously, her tone even sharper than before. Did you hear about what happened last night and purposely came to make fun of me? Elder sister's joke, how dare I look at it? If younger sister really came to see elder sister's joke, you will not come in person and make elder sister angry. Instead, it will be those women in the palace who shut themselves in the room. They can laugh however they want, they can be proud however they want. Indeed, according to Pang Yuan's identity, if those people really wanted to see her as a joke, they would never dare to run in front of her and laugh at her in person. If you want to chat with more like-minded people about exploding cute pet concubine, regent, get into trouble, WeChat, talk about life, find a confidant. Chapter 8:10. Not only them, but even Shangwan Mei herself did not dare to do so. Thinking of this, Pang Yuan's expression became a little better. Why did you come to see me? Why would a younger sister come to see me? I just came to chat with you. Pang Yuan looked at her dangerously and felt disdainful of her pretentious tone. Really? How come this consort doesn't remember when this consort had such a close relationship with you? Elder sister, His Majesty is currently occupied by an outsider. You and I are both His Majesty's women. Although we often quarrel because of His Majesty, there's an old saying that family members will always be family. How can we let an outsider take advantage of the situation and gain His Majesty's favor when we are fighting among ourselves? Although she did not like the slut in front of her. However, Pang Yuan still listened to her words. Do you think that I want to let that slut take advantage of the situation? It's a pity that the Emperor dotes on her so much, and even the Empress Dowager, Hong Fui, is on the same side as her. The Empress Dowager has already warned me. If I continue to find trouble with that slut openly, do you think that the Empress Dowager will let it go? Elder sister, you also said that it's naturally impossible to find trouble with that slut openly, but elder sister, why don't you do it behind her back? Behind her back. Thinking of her collaboration with the dark poison cult, she frowned. wasn't this considered behind her back? The Empress Dowager and the Empress Dowager were both influential figures in the court. No matter how powerful she was, it would be difficult for her to escape their eyes. However, she did not tell this to Sheng Wanmei, in case Sheng Wanmei got hold of her weakness in the future. Seeing that Pang Yuan did not speak, how could Sheng Wanmei, who was smart, not know what Pang Yuan was planning? She smiled and took the initiative to step forward. She held Pang Yuan's hand and helped her sit on the chaise lounge. Then she personally bent down to pour a cup of tea for her and respectfully handed it to her. "Younger sister, tell me the truth. Don't be angry. Speak. Everything about big sister is good, whether it's beauty, background, or talent. In this harem where beauties are as common as clouds, big sister's beauty is unparalleled. Even my younger sister feels inferior when she sees you and doesn't dare to stand next to you. It's because big sister's brilliance can always subdue my younger sister unknowingly." Pang Yuan was elated by Sheng Wanmei's flattering words. Knowing her character, she didn't show much happiness on her face, although she didn't hate her as much as before. But her face was still cold and indifferent. "Mei Fei, you know, this concubine has never liked these flattering words." I know. I'm not trying to flatter you. I'm telling the truth. Even if I don't say it in front of you, I think so in my heart. Alright, tell me why you're here. Don't try to be glib. Yes. Sheng Wanmei looked at her with a smile, and then looked at the servants in the bedroom. The smell of blood in the hall had long made Pang Yuan impatient. Moreover, the smell of blood didn't calm her irritable heart. Instead, it made her even more irritable. If you want to chat with more like-minded people about exploding cute favorite concubine, the Prince Regent, gets into trouble, follow Yudu Literature on WeChat. Chat about life and find bosom friends. Chapter 8:11. Why are you still kneeling here? Why don't you get out of here? Could it be that you want this empress to invite you out? Several palace maids and eunuchs who had been beaten beyond recognition had long wanted to leave, but they did not dare to move because the imperial concubine did not speak. They were afraid to make a decision without authorization and make the imperial concubine even more unhappy. At that time, they would not even be able to keep their lives. Now they heard Pang Yuan take the initiative to ask them to get out. As if they were granted amnesty, they quickly got up from the ground and kept kowtowing to her to thank her. "Thank you, imperial concubine. Thank you, imperial concubine." Even Xiao also got up from the ground and ran out with the palace maids and eunuchs without looking back. "Now that they are all out, if you have anything to say, just say it to me. You, imperial concubine, you can go too." "Yes, imperial concubine." Yu obediently took the order and retreated. Soon, in the huge Puryang palace, only she and Pang Yuan were left. Sheng Wanmei looked at Pang Yuan and smiled first. Pang Yuan was annoyed to see this foxy smile. Looking at the harem, before Shen Yueji came, the only person who could be regarded as an opponent by her was this Sheng Wanmei. The reincarnation of a natural fox, a seductive demon. If it were not for the fact that her brother did not like women like her at all, she was really afraid that her brother would be seduced by her one day. "Sheng Wanmei, I am not a man, put away your way of seducing men, you will only make me feel more disgusted." Sheng Wanmei felt wronged. "Elder sister, appearance and figure, that is given by parents, younger sister does not want to be like this." Listening to her answer that did not match her heart, Pang Yuan sneered again and again. "In the end, you don't want to, or are you crazy to think that you don't know how good your appearance is and how enviable it is? Younger sister does not think that I am so good. If we really talk about excellence, how can younger sister compare to imperial concubine sister? If younger sister can be in the same situation as elder sister, not to mention my current appearance, as long as I can exchange for elder sister's appearance and life experience, even if I am asked to die, I am willing. Even if she knew that this slut was just saying some flattering words, who wouldn't want to hear this kind of flattery? Especially someone like Pang Yuan who was overly vain. She sneered a few times. Did you come to me to come up with a plan, or just to say these flattering words to make this queen happy? Little sister, I heard that big sister had a quarrel with the Empress Dowager and the white-haired granny. Seeing that Pang Yuan's expression wasn't very good, Shangwan Mei didn't try to avoid suspicion at all. Not only that, younger sister also heard that last night, the emperor doted on that woman from Feng country. Because Jijia couldn't stand the emperor's favoritism towards her, she angrily ran to Xingyang Palace to make a fuss and got slapped by the white-haired granny. Bang! She slammed the table in front of her again. This time, Shangwan Mei pretended to be surprised and covered her mouth. Sister, don't be angry. I only heard about it. If you want to blame someone, blame those gossipers in the harem. I heard them talking about you and ordered them to execute them on the spot. Big sister, little sister has already helped you vent your anger. Not only did Pang Yuan's expression not improve because of her words, it became even more serious. Shangwan Mei, what do you mean? Or do you think that because your Shangwan family is a first-rank official in the imperial court, I will not do anything to you because I am really afraid of you? If you want to chat about explosively cute pet concubine, Prince Regent, get into trouble with more like-minded people, follow Yudu Literature on WeChat. Chat about life, find a bosom friend. Chapter 8:12. Sister, what are you talking about? Although the Shangwan family is a first-rank official in the imperial court, you can do whatever you want with us if you're not satisfied. Moreover, you can simply accuse the Shangwan family of a crime. Not only will the emperor believe it, even the ministers in the imperial court will not doubt Grand Tutor Pang's prestige. It's good that you know. I know. Of course I know. I don't want you to become my enemy. I'm here to help you. Help me. Are you helping me or are you plotting something else? Shangwan Mei, do you think I'm a fool? Sister, one is an outsider and the other is one of us. If it were you, who would you side with? Although Xin Yueji is from the Feng country, she doesn't have a strong background and is far away from her home country. She's easy to deal with. The only problem is that she's the emperor's favorite. Not only that, even the Empress Dowager and the white-haired granny are on her side and protecting her. It's even harder for you to hurt her. Sister, you have to know that that woman is our enemy now. No matter what happened in the past, we have to work together now. Only by working with me can we deal with that woman together. Otherwise, if you continue to fight with me, neither of us will benefit. That outsider will benefit from it. Sister, just think about it and you'll understand. Pang Yuan probably felt that Shangwan Mei's words were reasonable. In fact, Pang Yuan knew this even without her saying it. Otherwise, she wouldn't let the woman she had hated for so many years stay. Then tell me, how should I work with you to deal with her? Sister, Shangwan Mei smiled and leaned closer to her. She whispered in her ear, since you're going to deal with her openly, there are so many people in the palace who are protecting her. You'll definitely be at a disadvantage. Since that's the case, why don't you do it secretly? Sister is also an imperial concubine of a country, the Master of Dark North. I think the Empress Dowager doesn't want to see sister and that woman to the point of falling out. In this way, the Empress Dowager will be stuck in the middle. If you're magnanimous and are willing to let bygones be bygones with that woman from the Feng Kingdom, then not only will you leave a good impression on the Empress Dowager, but you've also never interacted with Xin Yueji before. You don't know her, so why don't you take this opportunity to befriend her? And then try her weight. You mean, you want this consort to take the initiative to seek peace with her? With your status, even if you want to sue for peace, it will be that woman who comes to you. You just have to sit there, and even if she has 100 guts, she won't dare to disrespect you. There are countless tricks in the harem. Sister, I came here today to give you advice. Sister, why don't you consider it? This Shinyueji, as long as you are willing to cooperate, I will help you get rid of her. What do you think? How will you help me? Aren't you afraid? What else can be more important than the safety of Dark North and the safety of His Majesty? This woman from the Foam Kingdom obviously has ulterior motives towards His Majesty and Dark North. Sister, I just want to unite with you to fight against the invaders. After Shang Wanmei left, the two of them had their own thoughts. If you want to chat with more like-minded people about explosively cute favorite concubine, the regent, gets into trouble, follow Yudu literature. Chapter 8:13. Yu looked at the concubine walking in front of her. Seeing that there was no one around, she couldn't help but come in front of her. Concubine, do you think this concubine Pang will be fooled? From the fact that she let me enter her pure Yang palace today, it is enough to prove to me that she has been fooled. Shang Wanmei looked at her with a smile. Concubine is wise. Sure enough, everything is under your control. Shang Wanmei smiled. She not only wanted to get rid of Shinyueji, but also Pang Yuan. She only relied on the backing of the Pang family to be able to do whatever she wanted in the harem until now. Others were afraid of her, but she wasn't. Such a brainless woman was here to pave the way for her. Concubine, are you really going to cooperate with Concubine Mei? After Shang Wanmei left, Xiao came in worriedly. After all, she was a maid who had followed Pang Yuan for many years. After Shang Wanmei left, Pang Yuan quickly told her what Shang Wanmei had said to her. Because of Shang Wanmei, Pang Yuan was not so angry. Even now when she looked at Xiao, she was too lazy to lose her temper. Isn't this asking for your opinion? Xiao was so scared that her body trembled subconsciously. I don't dare. This matter is all up to the concubine. I am just a lowly servant, how dare I give advice for the concubine? Xiao, this concubine is not asking you to give me advice. When have your bad ideas ever succeeded? It was okay if she didn't say it. When she said it, Pang Yuan was angry. But because she was still happy now, she just glared at her and no longer looked at her. Shang Wanmei has always been the most scheming one in this harem. Even the Empress Dowager has reminded me to deal with her less. Although this concubine doesn't like this woman, at least I have taken the Empress Dowager's words to heart. I have not interacted with her for so many years. I know that all these years, it has been this concubine Mei who doesn't know what's good for her. She has been looking for trouble with you. But can you believe that you will cooperate with her? Are you not afraid that Imperial Concubine Mei wants to drag you down with her? Xiao, I'm already in the water now. I'm not afraid that she will drag me down. Don't forget what I've done in secret. I've formed an alliance with the Dark Poisonous Cult. The Empress Dowager and the others know about this. Even my brother, the Emperor, is aware of it. Although he didn't. Hearing this, Pang Yuan's face lit up with a touch of joy. Even her eyes brightened. Xiao, what do you think? This consort treats the woman he admires like this and even wants to take her life. Why isn't Brother Emperor angry? Nor did he come to cause trouble for me. When Xiao heard this, she hurriedly smiled and replied, that's because His Majesty has you in his heart, Your Highness. If it was any of the concubines in the harem, even if it was Imperial Concubine Mei, if the Emperor knew that they dared to treat the woman he likes like this, he would have already punished them. Is that so? Does this mean that Brother Emperor still has me in his heart? In his heart, he still knows which is more important? Thinking of father entering the palace today, he must be advising brother emperor in the imperial study not to make the woman from Foam country the empress. She wondered if brother emperor would listen to her father's words. I've decided to cooperate with Shangguan Mei. I'll agree to her request. It doesn't matter if she's using me or if she has other intentions. As long as I can deal with that bitch, I'm not afraid of being used by her. If she wanted to chat with more like-minded people about explosively cute pet concubine, Prince Regent, get into trouble, she would follow Yudu literature.